What's up, bros? Welcome to the Men of Mind podcast. I'm Omar Bravo, and this is the podcast all about badass knack bros and their journeys through life. From the bad beats and the lessons learned to the mountaintop successes and advice they'd give their younger selves, this is your chance to get to know these bros better. In this episode, I talk with Tennyson Jones, Untitled Chapter Omicron class number 96 from Santa Clara University. Orale.
Oh my gosh, hello.
Hey, what's happening, my man, Mr. Jones?
How's it going?
It's going well, brother. It's going well. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Fantastic, man. Hey, so I was thinking about it, and I had thought we had met in person, at least. I don't know, but I could just within this virtual world, you associate. It's like, oh, I've seen that dude's picture a million times. I must know him. So
I feel the same way. I was like, I don't know if we've met, but it's the same type of deal. I was like, I know him.
When did you cross?
I crossed in 2011.
So I was in the area for Sal's wedding at that time, and so I might have run into you guys then. I think you were either pledging or had just crossed, and so I think that maybe we did meet, but you were a pledge at the time for sure.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy though. I think I oftentimes find myself thinking about college, and it's like, oh, I'm not that far removed, and it's like, oh no, that was 20 years ago. That was 21 years.
Yeah,
I crossed in 99, I think, and it's like, but it seems like just yesterday. So
yeah, and for me, it's been 10 years, and it feels. I mean. Okay. It feels like a long time, but 9 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I'll age you a little bit here and there.
That's absolutely acceptable. So let's start off with oh yeah, the same question. I always start with everybody. Married with kids, single and ready to mingle, somewhere in between. Let's start with that. Basics.
I am single, ready to mingle. If you know any available gentlemen, send them my way.
Okay, there you go. I'll be on the lookout. So no relationship right now, huh? That's good.
That's right.
All right. I'll work.
I'll work. A little bit of play here and there. I'm in the scene. I'm making my way, but yeah.
And so where are you in the scene at? Where do you live right now?
I live in LA. I moved to Los Angeles in 2016. So I've been here for about 5.5, coming up on 6 years. And I originally moved to West Hollywood, which was honestly really great because I had just come out right before moving to LA, and West Hollywood's kind of like the like LGBT epicenter of Los Angeles, similar to like the Castro in San Francisco. And then now I live in Koreatown, a little bit more settled into my groove, that kind of thing.
Cool. So 2015, you came out. That means that what year did you graduate? I
graduated in 2014.
Oh, okay. So right after college.
Yeah, actually my coming out story was, like the Knacks the New Alpha Kappa was some of the first folks I came out to. We had one of those like, barbecues or like campfire type of events.
Oh, okay.
And people were going around sharing stuff. And I don't even remember why it popped into my brain that I was like, this is the time to share it. And this is the group to share it with. But it just felt comfortable. And they were the first real people I told.
Was anybody surprised or did everybody know?
I think, I don't know. I think they were all really supportive, more so than like expressing shock or knowledge. I think people were just like happy that I was comfortable with who I was. And I don't know if you know Jesse Rizzo.
Right.
He was a couple years older than me, and he came out maybe 2 or so years before I did. And he was, I think, the very first person I came out to.
Okay.
So having a mentor in the chapter, in the fraternity, made it that much easier.
Yeah, that's beautiful, bro. That's so beautiful. The reason I asked if anybody was surprised is because I don't know how close you were with your line or the chapter or anything, but in close-knit groups, oftentimes I've heard stories where it's like somebody comes out and it's like, yeah, or they do the, oh my gosh, I'm so shocked. Like, no, bro, we knew, but we were just waiting for you to feel comfortable, not for us to feel comfortable. So that's awesome to hear. that it was super supportive, because I would say that NAC has grown a whole bunch in that area, and at the same time, at least for me, I grew up in Utah, so it was a whole different story than Silicon Valley and San Francisco and the likes. And so when I was in school, everybody was really supportive still. But I mean, I think that kind of stuff has grown exponentially just in whatever my short lifetime. So.
Yeah, for sure. The reason it took me so long to come out was because even when I was growing up, there wasn't really language around like other types of sexual orientation besides like straight and gay. And I knew I was like not totally one or the other, and was kind of a little bit somewhere in between. And so right around the time I was graduating, I think like more language started to become a little bit more common. And so I think that's what kind of sent it into trajectory. And also like having, in hindsight, so many other queer brothers all around me. There's so many folks from not only like just Santa Clara, but lots of other chapters of Nu Alpha Kappa that have come out or came out around that same time. Even folks in our founding fathers, there are some folks.
That's right.
So I think like seeing that representation in a very like hyper masculine group of people, was like so rewarding.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that, because what I posted this thing on Instagram the other day about the difference between belonging and fitting in, right? And so while I would absolutely say that you belong in NAC, as far as fitting in as the standard 5'6", 5'7" brown dude with the fade, like you don't quote unquote fit in.
I don't.
What attracted you? How the heck did you get wrapped up with the NACs?
Oh, I was thinking about it earlier today before this call, and it's really, I think a lot of it was like right place, right time. I think like I grew up in a very like upper middle class, white, predominantly neighborhood. Like I grew up in Redding, California for the bulk of my childhood, which is very conservative.
Where exactly is Redding?
It's like 2 hours north of Sacramento.
Okay, so
close,
decently rural then, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
Yeah, okay.
But I just like, I don't know. I've always been the type of person that like kind of gets along with everybody. And I for a long time, I was actually the person who was like, oh, I don't see color, because I thought that was like the thing. Like that was my way of saying like, I have friends of all different shapes, sizes, colors, creeds. Now I realize the problem with that statement.
Right.
But I think coming into Santa Clara, the actual story is in my freshman orientation. There was a brother, Edo Medovic, and he and I, like on the weekend of my freshman orientation, they took the incoming freshmen to a pizza place. It was stuffed pizza at the time. It's now changed.
Yep.
Other things. And we were walking out of I remember this moment vividly. We were walking out of the restaurant and a Backstreet Boys song came on the radio. And I'm like a big Backstreet Boys fan. Call me basic or whatever you want. But I turned around, and in my vulnerability of excitement, I was like, oh my gosh, is that the Backstreet Boys? And who was standing at the door? None other than Edo, who immediately responded with the same excitement. And we immediately clicked and bonded over our love for a really basic boy band. And then it kind of like just snowballed from there. He then introduced me to the brothers. Like I think a big reason why it wasn't just like meeting one person and leaving it at one friendship and actually like joining the fraternity was that I like found this brotherhood that I think I was missing, especially as like a young, closeted, like gay kid. It was like, I didn't have a lot of like male friendships growing up. Like I always kind of felt like I didn't really fit in with guys. Like I wasn't that close to my brother or my father. And then coming to Santa Clara and meeting this great group of guys who are like more traditionally masculine individuals, like that still accepted me and loved me and like saw me no different. not even mentioning the layer of our skin color, was like just so eye-opening and refreshing. Of course, it didn't come with hurdles, and there's like so many stories of why, like, of how I've learned actually really great lessons about race from being part of NAC as a white person. But it was an unexpected journey for sure.
Fantastic, man. Well, I give it up to you because oftentimes, especially with regards to race conversations or the likes, there's can be animosity towards white folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, every time, and I feel those the same as everybody else. And that's that my wife is white, my kids are half white. I have 5 half white kids. I have the most amazing brothers and sisters in laws who are white, and so that temptation to reverse stereotype or reverse racism or however that gets called out. It's like, oh no, wait, except that I can point to countless examples of the downest ass white folks I've ever known. and it's like, so explain that away. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always give it up because we've got a number of we got lots and lots of white folks. My big bro in the fraternity is Fabio. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I absolutely get it. So, and it's got to be weird. I mean, and I think it's interesting because the reason that I gravitated to NAC is for my desire to fit in, because I grew up in Utah, which I never fit in. And then once I got to Santa Clara, and obviously it's I lived in Unity House, so it was more. Oh, did you really?
Yeah,
wow.
totally.
I was more comfortable there, and then once I found the NACs, it was game over because I definitely felt like I fit in. So
yeah, I don't know. It just felt like it was. I think that the folks who join NAC are just more. I mean, whether they're putting on a good show or not, they're just authentically themselves, and just like real ass human beings. Like it didn't feel like I fit in with those guys over like the traditionally like Santa Clara fratty lacrosse bros any day, even though like if you were just to look at me on paper, you would say maybe I fit in that bucket. It's so strange the way the universe worked that way, but I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, and it's so cool to hear because NAC fundamentally changed my life, and it seems like it had a huge influence on your trajectory just the same, in a different time, in a different era, in a different generation, and for far different reasons. And at the same time, this organization was there to fully support and mold. And I think that's really wild. It was what we needed it to be.
Yeah, totally. And I think like my passion for now that I'm in my professional career, I've kind of built this passion around diversity, inclusion, equity, and I'm doing a lot of work there for my company. And I think it would not have happened without the experiences of joining Nu Alpha Kappa. I mean, not to say they were a means to an end, because like that's not it at all. That's not it at all. And I would not have expected it. But I remember specifically one night where we were all at the fraternity house. There was maybe like 15, 20 of us. It may have been a pledging activity or a meeting or something. I remember it not being a party. There were no girls, no outside people of any kind. And we got a noise complaint. And the police come and knock on the door. And we're all standing in the living room. And the police, like one of the guys answers the door. The police officer asks like if he can like come in and look around. And he walks in, and we're kind of standing in like a big circle, like a big like U formation. And I'm so happen to be one of the last people in his vision. He scans the room. I'm the only white guy in the room. He scans the room, and he gets to me, and he points at me, and he says, "Hey, you, can I speak to you outside?" And he called me. He called for real.
I believe it because he thought it was a hostage situation.
For real. And he calls me outside. And he's like, "Hey, what's going on in there? Are you okay?" Blah, blah, blah. And it was the weirdest situation that's ever happened to me. And like the moment that like opened my eyes to like race in America, I was like, wait, like this is the system is built for me. Like they are literally like protecting me when like they don't know anything about this situation and who these guys are and my relation to them. And the fact that I stuck out like a sore thumb and they felt like they needed to protect me or back me in some strange way. It was like, I will forever remember that story.
Oh, I bet there was a lot of laughs about that.
Oh, when we closed there ended up being no complaint, like no ticket, no anything, because it was literally not a party of any kind. We were literally just hanging out. We closed the door and it was, I mean, all hell broke loose in our laughter. We thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And it was just like, it has some very serious undertones, but I'll forever laugh at that memory.
Well, and at the same time, testimony to the knacks are loud ass jerks, dude. Like the knacks are loud. So
that's right.
I'm sure the noise complaint was justified, even if it was 20 people. And
we were just having a meeting. That's just how we get.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. That's wild. That is absolutely wild. Crazy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. So you said you grew up in Reading. What you mentioned a brother? Is that?
Yeah. So I have a younger brother. He's 3 years younger than me. And then I have an older sister who's 2 years older. So we're 5 apart in total.
Okay. And you said you're not super close?
Yeah. I mean, like we're cordial, but we just are very different. He is like into all the like traditionally athletic, masculine type of things. He hunts, he fishes, he plays football, he plays rugby, like is really into all the sports and whatnot. And he's very religious. I'm not as religious. Like, so we're just on a little bit of different wavelengths, but we love each other. And like when we get together, like we're still close in our own unique way, but our interests are very different.
Yeah. Yeah. And your sister?
She and I are super close. I mean, we're also very different. Both of my siblings are married. My sister's in the Navy. Like she's also super athletic, super into sports. Both my siblings are like into my dad in that way. And I was close to my mom in the more artistic side. So we're not not as close, like, interest wise, but my sister's my best friend. Like I call her for literally everything. She talks me through. She can get me to cry at the drop of a hat, just without trying, because of that, just like emotional bond. Also, my mother passed away when I was younger, so she's very much a motherly figure in my life. So that's why we're super close.
How old were you when your mom passed?
I was 10.
Insane. Yeah, that's insane. I can't even fathom it.
Yeah, it was a brain aneurysm, which there's no good thing about the situation, but I guess in some bright light, there's like, it was quick and like as painless as possible for her. And for us, like we didn't have to sit and watch her pass over time. And it like very much made me into the person I am today. Like I very much carry it with me. And like I said, I was very close to my mom too. So she lives with me in all of the things I do. So, I mean, like, I wouldn't wish it on myself or anyone ever if I were to do it over again. But I've learned a lot from it for sure.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people spend lifetimes learning that tomorrow isn't guaranteed and that you should live every day like all the cliches. But I feel like events like that really drive it home that there's no time to waste here. It's game time every time.
Yeah, for sure. It's made me, I mean, like not only do we have to grow up much faster as kids because we're then doing things that traditionally your parents would just like take care of without you even having to blink. But also, yeah, you go through like real life trauma and emotion so much younger. And so you have so much more respect for the people in your life, friends, family, the people who are close to you, you hold closer. The things that you do, you don't take them as lightly. So I think those are some of the things I've taken away for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Did your dad remarry or?
He did. He remarried my stepmom, who's actually Ukrainian. So we're very close to the stuff that's happening right now in the world. But
how old were you when that transpired?
They got married when I was maybe 16,
Okay.
something like that. I was in my later years of high school.
Yeah.
Her and I are not super close, not for any bad reason, but just like I was on my way out the door into college, and so there wasn't as much opportunity to become close with her.
What was high school like in Reading? Big high school, small high school?
I went to a very small high school.
Friday Night
Reading,
Lights?
so Reading is known for those type of schools, or not, maybe not known to anybody, but there's maybe 3 or 4 big high schools that everyone pretty much goes to. I happened to go to a brand new school that had just started when I was in 7th grade. It was 6 through 12. And I was in my sister was in the first graduating class of that school. We don't need to get into all the specifics, but it started as 6 through 9. She joined as a 9th grader, and then they built on high school years as the school matured. But all this to say, the school was only 100 people in my graduating class, and definitely like not the Friday Night Lights, not very not very high ranking in any athletic sport. Yeah, it was interesting. My high school experience was not bad. Like I think I was a fairly like popular kid. Like I wasn't like on the first invite list to things, but I knew everybody. Like I knew everybody by name, and I could call most of the folks in my graduating class like somewhat of a friend. So I think I was also student body president, class president. I was a little bit of like a do-it-all type of kid, which is maybe why I fell into NAC, because I was like, oh, another club, another activity. But yeah, that was kind of my high school experience. I also got into theater. I ended up being a theater major at Santa Clara.
Yeah, that's right.
So my start in theater was back in middle school, high school.
Very cool. Very cool. So the transition from small town to the center of Silicon Valley, how'd you choose Santa Clara?
How did I choose Santa Clara?
There's just so many colleges in California.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to stay in California. It was kind of my dad's unwritten rule. So the schools I applied to were all in California. And I was very fortunate in that I went to a school that did like college visits when we were in our senior year. And Santa Clara was one of the colleges we toured. My dad had gone there for his MBA.
Legacy.
So a little bit of legacy, but other than that, I didn't have that much connection to it. Actually my family on my dad's side is like native, well, not native, but like has lived in the Bay Area for a long time, Cupertino, San Jose. And my grandma, I come from a big Stanford family. It's where my sister went and my dad went. I applied there, did not get in. Santa Clara was kind of always like the younger brother or younger sister to Stanford. And it had kind of that same type of feel. And I just remember my grandma being like, yeah, I remember when I was growing up, and like, we always wanted to go to the dances at Santa Clara, but they wouldn't let us because we weren't Catholic. And so she always had some like fun stories about like wanting to go to like Santa Clara to go to the boys' dances and whatnot. So it always kind of had a little bit of like a spot in my brain. But I think I just like happened to pick the right one, because I got into like St. Mary's and USF, which are kind of similar schools to Santa Clara. But Santa Clara just stuck out above the rest, and thank God.
Yeah, absolutely. So I resonate so much with that statement. I have I'm the youngest of 9, but my 2 closest siblings both went to Stanford. And so from the time I was
there you go.
8, my brother, I was 8 when my brother got accepted to Stanford, and then my sister went after him, and then I was the last one. And so I absolutely thought that was my plan. I was going to Stanford my whole life, and then when I didn't get in, it was like, I guess I'll go to Santa Clara. Like if you've got a shot at Stanford, then yeah, you're a shoo-in at Santa Clara. That's cool. And
yeah,
it's absolutely the little brother, and I still to this day think about, 'cause when you see some Stanford on TV or something like that, like you don't ever see Santa Clara on TV, and so I'll think about, I was like, wow, what if I would have gone to Stanford, and how different my life would have been, and fundamentally just night and day different. And I love my life, and so it's like I would have sacrificed. And perhaps the biggest thing is NAC, like,
yep,
for sure. For that alone, Santa Clara was the right choice all the way.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like because of, I don't know if it's the size of Santa Clara or the
I say it
people.
like it was a choice. So fate. I didn't choose Santa Clara.
Totally. I think I'm like,
Stanford chose Santa Clara for me.
yeah, exactly. Definitely, that was a little bit of my story for sure. But I think like knowing, I don't know if it was the size of the school or what it was, but I was so able to like get involved with things like NAC and like the theater department. And I feel like if I were at a much more, I don't know if like this is not meant to be a dig at Santa Clara, but like if I were at like a more prestigious school, would I have been like would I have been benched in all of the activities that I wanted to do? Like, would there have been like 10 more people that were better than I was? Like I think going to kind of a medium-sized school, you get to be a little bit more special than if you were at like a massive Ivy League type thing.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. Let's talk about, so at Santa Clara you major in theater.
Mm-hmm.
Mahaffey, is that right? No, it's not Mahaffey. What was the theater name?
Oh my gosh, why am I blanking?
You lived there.
I lived there. Oh, this is bad. I'm gonna remember it like right after we get off the call. I can't remember.
I thought it was Mahaffey.
No,
it's not.
It's it's
that's funny.
Come.
That's a knock on you, theater boy.
Well, it's also a knock on age. I think I've had a lot of recreational activities from beyond college that have made me forget a lot of
how old are you
names. I'll be 30 this year.
Big 30, good deal. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you did theater and you did NAC. You lived in Unity House. God, I mean, just those things were a really great college experience. When I tell people about Unity House, they're like, "No way." I'm like, "No, seriously." Well, just because, I mean, well, when I was in Unity, it was freshman through senior. It was all multicultural. And then it was completely co-ed. So we had girls living right next door to us and right across the hall from us.
Yep.
And so that experience is unlike, I mean, even the guys from SWIG, they're like, whoa, what? Or the all male dorms and the all female dorms and the all freshman dorms type of thing. And ours it was just, I don't know, it was Animal House when I went. So,
yeah, it was, I think after I graduated, they changed Unity into being gender separated, like floor by floor. I don't know if it's changed back or what it is now, but when I was there, also mixed. They also, I think at the time, had one of the bigger dorm rooms. So as like a naive incoming freshman, you're like, which one has the biggest rooms? I'll take that one. And you're right. Like it totally just had like a total mix of people. There were folks from, I think we had at least freshman, sophomore. I think junior, senior maybe didn't live there when I was there, but
is that right?
I lived there actually as a sophomore as well. And my roommate was in NAC, Denny. And so on my sophomore year, which was so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Is Denny the bro that just passed? That's not.
No, Andrew,
Drew, not Denny, Drew. Okay.
Yeah. Drew was in my line.
Yeah. Yeah. Who else was in your line? It was Drew.
It was, we had, you're going to quiz me on all their names now too. I should have studied. We had Brian. There's 6 of us. It was Brian, then Juan, then I don't know the order, but it was Fred and Drew. Why am I forgetting?
And you and one more.
I can see his face. He's gonna kill me if he ever listens. He would never listen to this. He's not really close with Mac anymore. He lives in San Francisco. I can see his face right in front of me. But I mean, that's a little bit. It's sad, but it's a little bit telling of the experience of my line. I kind of had a little bit of an unfortunate like pledge class. Like we were great. Like I loved them. We were super close at the time, but. One, we weren't super close when we started. They all knew each other for the most part. Everybody knew each other except for Juan and I. And so they were all super tight. We also pledged in the winter. So they had a whole quarter to like get to know each other even better. A lot of them knew each other from before Santa Clara. And so Juan and I actually had a very much like an uphill battle of like fitting into the rest of the 6. And then after we crossed, and I think it was my sophomore or junior year, they all really like stepped away from NAC. Like they all really had like bad taste in their mouth about one thing or the other, and kind of like haven't been part of the fraternity since. Brian and Juan and I are all still pretty close and still involved and whatnot. Juan, I think, still works at Santa Clara actually, which is great. But the other three, well, Drew is now passed, but the other two are very much removed from the fraternity, which is unfortunate, but
it happens. It happens for one reason or another. I mean, and that's one of the things about college is you're as a human, you're not done cooking, if you will, right? You're still half baked. And so people are trying things out and people are changing and people drift away. And that's one of the whole reasons why I started this, was to catch up with the bros who I lost touch with. I don't know that
I just remembered his name. It's Fernando. And else, whoever listens to this is very much welcome to roast me for taking that long to remember his name, because that was atrocious.
That's good. I'm sure you'll get some roasting.
Please do. Bring it my way. That's terrible.
Yeah. So like I was saying, it's just to be able to catch up with folks and see, it's like, hey, so how'd you turn out, man? Because we were super tight, or we weren't as tight, or we were on different trajectories, and it's been such a blast to see all of these shining examples of responsible grown men handling their business, taking care of their families, and being leaders in their communities and in work, and it's been just a joy, an absolute joy for me to see this. I guess this is episode like 8 or 9. I think number 5 posts tomorrow, but nice. I've had this opportunity, and oh man, I am just jacked beyond belief on getting to do this. And you're the first bro that I didn't go to school with, or that I didn't really know while I was undergrad. And this is awesome. I love the idea of just having an excuse to get together and hey, let's talk, let's chat. Maybe we can do some business together. Maybe we can whatever it is. So really cool. And as like I was saying, people drift away. That's just part of it. That's just part of it. All right. So you graduate as a theater major, and the dream is you're going to go to LA and like be a
make
star?
It big.
No. I don't know. Was that ever part of it? Like, were you trying to?
It's funny. I had a love for acting and theater in school, but I was never someone who was like, I'm going to go do this full time. I had a bunch of folks. You would think in my class who pursued those dreams, those ambitions. But I majored in a half. I had a major in theater, I had a minor in education, which was called urban education, which in hindsight, that name is not really appropriate. So now that I'm a little bit more fully formed, I would have questions if they still have that as the name of the major. But it had an emphasis on like working with kids in lower income, traditionally underrepresented or underserved communities. Also part of, I think, what sparked my journey. But anyway, my dream was to be teach arts to kids. When I was in school, I got involved with a program that went to Nicaragua. And I've now been there 9 times, and I would teach theater to kids down there. So coming out of college, I was like, I'm moving to Nicaragua. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to teach kids. I don't even speak Spanish, but I have picked up a bunch through just my friends and my travels, but I'm just going to make it work. And I went down there as like a trial period, and I didn't get the job. I thought it was a shoo-in. I didn't realize in hindsight that they were interviewing me and that it was still very much up in the air. Didn't get it. Flew back devastated to the United States with no plans, no money in my pockets, except a diploma. And I ended up couch surfing for like 6 months, still living in like Santa Clara houses and whatnot with current students, just because I needed a place to stay. Didn't have my feet under me yet. And when I was like at my wit's end after like 6 months of looking, I had a mentor from school finally reach out and say, hey, or we'd already been talking about my career, and he was like, have you considered like a career in tech, like in the Silicon Valley? Like, we're in the heart of it. There's money in it. Like, you're a social person. Like, there's probably like some jobs that's like people oriented. And he sent me in the direction of tech companies. And I happened to, long story short, find an opportunity at Netflix. I was at the right place, right time again with someone who worked at Netflix as a recruiter. And I happened to talk to them a little bit, understood a little bit about what recruiting was like. And I was like, oh, I can do that. You sit and talk to people all day. Like, you get
I can act like a recruiter.
Yeah, I'm a theater major. Like, I can shine on for anybody. And it worked. Like, I happened to slide in the door at Netflix with no experience, which in hindsight is wild. They very rarely hire people with little to no experience. And I just happened to kind of fake it till I made it. And it did sidetrack me. Like, I'm still at Netflix. I've been there now 7 years and I love it. It brought me to LA. It's changed my life for a lot of amazing reasons, but it definitely is not teaching theater to kids. So it's not what I studied to do. But there very much are aspects of it that are like where I'm mentoring, I'm leading, I'm coaching, like a lot of the things that I would do as a teacher. And I love it. Maybe one day I'll return to the education world, but like, I'm finding a lot of success and value in what I do today. So
that's great, man. Netflix are you working remote, or are you in their LA offices?
Yeah, so I work in our LA offices right now because of the pandemic. I'm at home. We actually just got an email today actually about coming back into the office. They're looking at probably getting into a more regular in-person routine by end of April. So it's going to be a huge change. You haven't seen him yet, but my dog is running around here somewhere, and he is a ball of anxiety. So I'm not totally excited about going back into the office, but there's also some great aspects to working in. I mean, like, if you ever come to LA, I'll take you to our offices, or even just like check out, if you know anyone in the Bay Area, go to the offices there, because there's something amazing about working at like an awesome office like a Netflix.
You started in the Bay Area and then transferred to LA?
Mm-hmm. I did about 2 years in the Bay Area, and then but all my business partners were in LA. I was hired into like a tech recruiting team, but I was like the only one on the team who did more creative roles. Because I mean, look at me, like I'm a creative person inside and out. Like, I'm not a tech guy. I don't recruit engineers or understand that trade. And so I was kind of like almost remote in a sense to a lot of business partners in LA. And eventually they were like, hey, do you want to move down to LA? And I'm a Bay Area boy at heart. Originally grew up in the Bay Area before moving to Redding. I was like, oh, fuck LA. I don't know if I can curse.
You can do whatever you want, man.
And I was like, oh, LA's like I'm so NorCal. But I ended up taking the bait, and I'm actually really glad I did. Like, LA is definitely where I need to be for at this point in my young adulthood.
Yeah. So you've been in LA for 5 years now. You said you started out in West Hollywood, and then now where are you? I'm
in K-Town, Koreatown. It's actually the part of town I'm in is predominantly Mexican.
It's called Koreatown.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a no man's land. If you were to draw lines around neighborhoods, we fall in Koreatown, but we're like kind of the outskirts of Koreatown. LA is very, the Bay Area is kind of like this too, where LA is a lot condensed into like a small amount of land, but you can go 5 blocks in any direction and you're in a whole different neighborhood with a whole different walks of life. So I'm glad I've not stayed just in West Hollywood, because there's very much a type of folks that are there, and like where I'm at now, there's very much a type of people that are here. But I think it's good for me to kind of stay a little bit mobile and stay interacting with different folks. I'm not getting too like in a bubble.
What's been the best part about living in LA?
Well, I think like what I said at the beginning of our call, like my coming out journey is very much tied to LA. Like, I had just come out, like I'm a young gay kid who like never lived in San Francisco, never experienced like gay culture. And so I think a lot of my like crazy young adulthood, like fresh, new on the town type of memories are in LA. And so I think like getting like on my own 2 feet, like building my identity of like who I am as a young adult. Like I think really coming into my own has been probably the best thing about living in LA, which like, not to say it's all glitz and glam, like LA freaking sucks sometimes because people are so chasing their dream that it's hard to nail anybody down. People can be very flaky or like distant and like stuck in their bubble. Like you grow apart from people just based on the fact that they moved 15 minutes down the road. So it's not without its hiccups, but I think like the best part about living in LA has definitely been like my journey into myself in a very corny way, if that sounds like that.
No, I think it's cool, and I think it makes a whole bunch of sense. As you're speaking about these different topics, I'm finding myself thinking about I think all of the guys that I've interviewed so far are either right at my age, I'm 42, or older. Like Sean Herrera's got to be 50, maybe 10 years older than me, like 52. And so I'm trying to adjust in that, like you're in a whole another stage of life, a whole nother bracket there where I think in a lot of ways, not that I'm not growing anymore, but I'm looking at a lot of things in hindsight. I'm looking at a lot of things in a different perspective, like and really absorbing and learning what I saw 10 years ago. I'm now finally like, okay, this is what it really meant. And I feel like you're in the throes of it. You're over the past 5 years, you're still doing major growing in your 20s.
Totally.
In your 20s, you grow so much. The saying that I've often used is I spent the entirety of my 20s unlearning all the nonsense that I learned in high school. Like that was my whole 20s was just like, oh, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. Unlearning all that society taught me to aspire for, or what success looks like, or what you should want, and how you should go about achieving it. I spent the entirety of my 20s unlearning all that stuff. It's like that none of that was actual, none of that was real. And then I spent my 30s executing on my strategy, executing on what was going to be best for me and mine, as opposed to, what society said, what society wanted, what my parents said, what my parents wanted. And so hearing that, it's like, oh boy, man, you're in the thick of it.
Yep, it's happening. I mean, like I'm very much, I feel that 100% because I don't know if I'll have a different opinion in a couple of years, but I think I'm right at that point in my life. Maybe it's also the approaching 30 of it that I'm like, okay, the going out to bars every night and that kind of stuff is getting old. And like, where am I headed now? Like my circle of friends is smaller, but more intimate. Like I'm like looking for something more serious dating wise. Like I think I'm career, like a little bit more, have more ideas about where I want my career to go, as opposed to trying to just like following whatever the company tells me and hope I don't get fired. So I think I'm definitely moving into kind of that more. I'm also on the house hunt. I'm looking to buy in a very competitive market. So there's aspects of, you're right. I'm very much in that, like, my life is going 100 miles an hour in terms of growth. Like it is constantly changing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember Sean Herrera when I was talking to him, and he was like, oh, my 20s was this, and my 30s was this, and my 40s was this, and I think my 50s is going to be this. And it's like, yeah, when you chop it up like that, it's absolutely those changes. One of the things that it took me a good while to learn and realize, was how much people change. And it's like, I have a shirt from a Brandon Heath lyric that says, I'm not who I was. It's like that guy, that was 20 years ago. And the core foundational values, like, am I still a good guy, or was I a good guy back then? Yeah, I believe I was. But as far as my behaviors and my actions and all that stuff, it's like, oh man, those were hats I was trying on. Like those
Mm-hmm.
were personas that I was experimenting with, and the idea of holding somebody to their beliefs that they had when they were 20, now that they're however old, it's like that's not even fair. Anybody, the saying I think my brother-in-law gave me was that anybody who still believes the same, thinks and acts the same way when they're 40 that they did when they were 20, just wasted 20 years of their life. Like
Yeah,
it's all about that growth, and it's not a light switch. It's this gradual metamorphosis, if you will.
totally. 100%.
And I think at some point you start the changes become more gradual. I think in the 20s to 30s, like it's can be pretty drastic,
Oh,
man.
yeah, for sure. Especially, I mean, like, I wouldn't like say LA is completely unique, but I think in LA, a lot of people are finding themselves and are, like I said, like trying to make it big. And so there's a lot of people who are going through big life changes in one small town, interacting with each other, influencing each other based on their meetings. So it feels very dramatic, feels very up and down. And in my age bracket probably has
All
a
of it,
play in that too.
all of it, all of it. Are you in touch with any bros down there? Because I know that there's tons of bros in LA.
Yeah, I am. So like I said, like Jesse Rizzo, who, like I said, was the first person I came out to. He's become kind of like a mentor to me. He's down here. We still keep in touch. I see him and his partner every so often, his fiance now.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I think his name is Jay. I see him
mhm,
on
okay.
social. I see him on social all the time.
Yeah, they're awesome. And then Edo, who I literally look at as my older brother. He, like I said, the first guy I met, period, coming into college, and also in any form of NAC, was the first person I met. He lives in LA. We don't see each other that often, but like we pick it up like no one's business. We go to Backstreet Boys concerts when they come into town. So there's that connection. And then there's a couple other bros. I'm actually surprisingly connected with some of the younger guys, like Pancho, who graduated in the last year or two, lives down here in LA. We see each other every so often. I just saw him right before the Super Bowl. So yeah, I found a little bit of like mentorship as well in my experience. I had like, I don't know if you've caught up or are up to date on all the more young lines of NAC, but we went through a couple of years of like slower growth. I think we're still kind of in it a little bit. And so being a recent alumni, which is not so recent anymore,
Not that recent, bro.
I still find myself like involved and connecting with the younger guys as much as possible to kind of like give them a little bit of an older but still younger guy's wisdom. So it's fun.
That's great. I know as far as being knowing the younger folks or whatnot, I feel like the only connection is about every 5, 6, 7 years I'll get a phone call from a pledge master saying, "Hey, so we're down to one guy, and so they gave me your phone number," and I'll have that guy have that conversation about once every 5 or 6 years. So, but
That's
that's
awesome.
that's about it as far as the younger guys, because I haven't been to the Bay since Sal's wedding, which was I think 2011, 2012.
Where are you based now?
I'm based out of Utah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
right after graduation, I moved to Dallas for a couple of years. Then I moved to Florida, and then after I quit corporate in '08, I traveled around the world a couple times, and that's when I landed back in the Bay, and I met I can't remember exactly who was online. I think, oh, actually, it was Edo's class
Yeah,
that had just
Edo,
crossed.
Rizzo, all
So
those guys.
I went to their nickname barbecue, and I nicknamed Edo, and I nicknamed Lucas. Um, I nicknamed a couple of those guys, man. I was on one that day, I guess.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah.
I
So
feel like their line had some good nicknames too. They were the seniors when I was a freshman. So
okay.
like coming into Santa Clara when they were the seniors was kind of perfect because they were a line of 9. Behind them was a
Yeah.
line of 5, and a lot behind them I think was a line of 5 or 6. And so like there was a fair amount of NACs when I came, and then we were a line of 6, and so there was close to like 30-ish dudes by the time I crossed.
That's a lot.
It was like one of our like more meaty tenures as a fraternity. And so it made for a really good experience.
That's great. Yeah, Edo's definitely one of the guys that I wanna catch up with at some point. Right after he graduated, I had helped him with some of his like he worked at Apple for a little bit, and he had hit me up on some resume and some interview experience and stuff like that. So yeah, and then he went off and did all the craziness with I forget the dude's name now.
Ryan,
whatever Ryan's last
name is.
Yeah.
He's still doing music. His brother is still doing music. They're awesome.
I'd love to have him on and catch up and hear all those crazy stories. That's good. What do you think is on the horizon? Like we're in 2022, and this pandemic is, God willing, like about to release us, hopefully. What are you most excited about for the next spring, summer?
What am I most excited about? I don't know. I think the pandemic, it's very simple, but I think for me personally in the pandemic, it's really like tested friendships. And I'm in the stage of life, again, like I haven't built a family yet. So I'm very much like my friends are my community, and it's really brought folks like either super close or brought them further apart from you. And so I think I've got in the last year of the pandemic, I've really built a small but mighty community of folks I'm really close to. So I think I'm excited to coming out of the pandemic, like see those relationships like grow even further and like see where that takes us. Also, like I said, I'm like on the house hunt. So I think I'm I'm setting some real like milestones for myself. And so I'm seeing that there's going to be hopefully some like really big growth for me personally in the next hopefully less than a year.
Deal. All right, let's do a couple fun questions because we're coming up on the hour and I want to be super respectful of your time. First one, 5 favorite artists. Could be actors, musicians, painters, authors.
Okay. I did a little bit of pre-thinking about this because if you talk to my family, I'm notorious for being indecisive. You would be here way longer than you need to if I thought of them all on the spot. So I'll say the Backstreet Boys since they've come up multiple times. I would not have met Knack without them.
I'm gonna think about that every time I hear a stupid Backstreet Boys song. I'll be like, hey, at least Rick, and it brought Tennyson to Knack.
Yeah, that's right. And they're so stupid. Everyone, you can dog on them all day, but they'll live in a safe space in my heart. Backstreet Boys, I got to go Whitney Houston. Robin Williams.
She's before your time.
Yeah.
So is Robin Williams. Jeez.
Yeah, but Robin Williams is iconic. He left his mark for sure. I'm gonna go Sam Shepard, who's a playwright. He's like he's like an American playwright. He actually just recently passed the last 5 years or so.
What do you write? I'm unfamiliar.
He wrote a lot of like more traditional plays, like nothing you probably would hear. Like True West is my favorite one by him, but there are a lot of like about like traditional American life. It sounds really boring, but I think his writing style was like really what got me into like doing I like write a little bit of my own. And I got into like directing theater in my last year of college. And so I think his work is probably some of my favorite. He acted as well. So he's in a couple little things here and there, but Sam Shepard. And then I got to go for number 5. I have to do my namesake, Alfred Lord Tennyson. I'm named after a poet who is way before my time, English poet.
He wrote the 300.
He wrote.
Isn't that the poem?
He wrote. I don't know, Charge of the Light Brigade.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what I.
Yeah. He wrote Crossing the Bar. He wrote like a lot of he has some like really famous quotes that you would not recognize, or you would recognize the quote, but you wouldn't recognize it was him until you knew. So hey, I gotta shout him out because otherwise.
There you go.
I wouldn't be Tennyson.
That is a very iconic name. I haven't met, I think you're the only Tennyson I've ever met in my life. So
Yeah, it's growing up as a kid, it was kind of like, what the heck is this name? But like as an adult, I own it.
yeah, as you should, as you should. Next question. 5 dinner guests, dead or alive.
Okay, so I'm going to throw Robin Williams in there again. Rihanna. My dinner is going to be fun. Like it's going to be, there's a lot of joy at my dinner, a lot of laughter. Jeff Probst, who's the host of Survivor. I'm like a Survivor super fan. Did you ever watch that show?
I've seen a season or two, like all the way through, but I'm not like.
Do you want to guess how many seasons of that show there are?
So I'm going to guess like 30 something.
42.
Wow.
Season 42 airs next week.
And the only reason I have any clue is because my wife and I we were looking for a show that we could watch with the kids that like everybody would enjoy or whatnot. And we started just watching The Amazing Race.
Yeah.
And it's like season 33. I think I've watched one season.
Yeah.
But it's fun and everybody enjoys it. And it's like, hey, let's put this on so we can relax and then go to bed. Like,
there you go. Yeah. So my like lifelong dream is to be on Survivor.
Be on Survivor.
So I'm definitely inviting Jeff.
Have you applied?
I applied once last year, actually around this time last year, but their application season is they'll accept videos year round, but they actually like read them or review them in the fall.
I feel like you got to be super, super extra to get on any of the show. Like,
I know.
Really, really over the top. I don't know.
I think I'm probably just going to apply once a year until something sticks or until I get over it. Cause I feel like if you apply that many times, you're bound to get on the show. Right. So
I think they get a lot of applications. I don't know.
They probably do. So he's coming for sure. This is a little out of left field, but I think I would invite my Uncle David, who he passed away when I was 3. But he died of AIDS. And he was like the only like queer, like gay family member really besides myself in my, as far as I know, in my lineage. And he was like also a theater kid. And I just didn't like get to know him. And I think that like knowing like someone who like, I think if we lived in the same time period, we would have connected on a lot of things. And also hearing someone who was very much part of the AIDS crisis would be, I mean, that'd be like, he's got some stories for sure. So he would come. I think that's 4. And then, okay, the last one, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to invite Chrissy Teigen and John Legend together.
The couple, there you go.
Because I'll invite one or the other and they get to bring their +1 because they're both hilarious. Chrissy Teigen also cooks. So I don't know if we had to have someone who cooks on the dinner guest menu.
She has to come cook. You're invited, but you got to cook.
you got to make something for us. It's a potluck now. And then I just have a feeling John Legend will sing at the end and Rihanna, like both at the same dinner. They'll probably sing by the end of the night. Like this
is a really great dinner. Jeez.
If you get to know me, you'll know that I overthink things for sure. So there's a lot of thought that went into my list.
I dig it. All right. Best advice you ever been given?
It's really simple, overly simple sometimes, but I think like, and I get it in 2 different ways, is to say thank you. So two quick stories. So one, my dad always told me to write thank you notes. And I would not have gotten my job at Netflix, I don't think, if I didn't write a thank you note, because they forgot about me initially after my interview and didn't respond for a couple of weeks. And I took my dad's advice and I wrote a thank you email, and that sparked their like it sparked them like remembering who I was.
I find that so insane, because I've done a lot of recruiting professionally. I've done so many interview workshops. I've got stuff online, and I'm like, you have to write a thank you email. It's like
Hmm.
it's just a staple. I can't understand that how anybody would not do it. And yet I've heard so many stories of, yeah, it was the thank you email that got me the job.
Yep.
And I've had managers tell me it was the thank you email that
Yeah.
I sent to them. It's like that's actually what tipped the scales, and that's what got you the job. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Everybody had to write a thank you email, and they're like, you're the only one. I'm just
Yeah. It's so old school. And like sometimes even as like a recipient of them, you're like, okay, these are nice, send it aside. But like when they land, they land. And like they don't take more than a minute to write. So I think like that saying
say
that is
thank
part of
you.
my say thank you. And then the other one was in theater growing up. We would get notes from our theater teacher after like running through our plays or musicals or whatever. And if you would get a note, my teacher would say to just say thank you. And that's it. So a lot of people would get notes and they'd be like, well, no, but I was trying to do blah, blah, blah. Or like, well, like really, I like they would kind of like make excuses for their actions. And it's like really that note of just say thank you has really sat with me. Cause like you don't just like grin and bear everything that people put on you, but knowing like when to react and when to like just like nod and smile, and then you can sit on it and react later. I think that has taken me out of a lot of bad situations. It's made me bring more thought into my words. So say thank you, I think is the best advice I probably ever received.
Dude, both of those are really, really good, man. I really appreciate those. I'm going to take those with me. Well, part of doing this as well, I've heard a lot of different folks, podcasters and the likes. Uh, they invite all these incredible people on, and they joke about, hey, so the reason I'm really having you on is because this is an hour worth of free consulting, and so I'm just going to suck all your knowledge. And it's like they grow so much by speaking with folks, and I'm legit going to take that. That was great.
Well,
Last question. Hopefully, it's super easy. Who should we have on next? And the catch is who should we have on the podcast next? Who should I get on the podcast next? And the catch is you got to help me get them on.
okay. Who should you have on next? Well, we already talked Edo. I think he's you're gonna get some awesome stories from him. Um, yeah, I gotta go Rizzo. Jesse Rizzo is probably like one of I mean, like he's like my mentor in life and in knack. And he's got a really cool story himself too. So I can get him on here in a heartbeat. So
There you go. I dig it, man. This has been an absolute pleasure, especially because we've never kicked it, we've never hung
yeah,
out, and so I appreciate you saying yes to coming on. And oh, one thing I was going to say is, have you ever met and or hung with Fabio?
so have we met in person? I don't know if we ever have, but I mean, like as the two white guys, everyone's
Well,
like,
but also
Fabio.
as both theater majors,
Mm-hmm.
and Fabio did his stint in LA, and he's got a
Yeah.
ridiculous amount of stories and the likes. I mean,
And he
so
may be in my lineage. I don't remember, but,
well, if he's in
there
your
was
lineage, then
definitely,
I'm in your lineage.
oh, then maybe not. I'll look it up. My lineage dies at me because I've had three failed, little bros.
Good job,
Uh,
dude.
but one day we'll spark it back up. No, but Fabio and I have like people always like make those connections of Fabio and I. So we've been in, and I think we've talked online and whatnot, but I don't know if he had a restaurant, right?
Yeah, he had the Knob Hill Grill up in San Francisco for a whole
Yeah.
bunch of years,
A,
and
a long time, for a lot of time, he was like, yeah, come to the restaurant. So
yeah,
we've never actually, I think, crossed officially
yeah,
paths, but
yeah. But he also was the theater major, which I thought was
mhm.
I don't know that we've had many theater majors. You're the only two I can think of. So
No, I think that I would be hard pressed to find another one. So
good deal, brother. Well, anyways, so I hope this is the beginning of a relationship. I hope we can kick it sometime when I'm in LA, and stay in touch, man. If there's ever anything I can ever do for you, I'm here for you, and hopefully likewise I'll call on you, and definitely get Edo and Rizzo up for sure.
Yeah, you should. This is awesome. No, I'm glad I reached out, and you reached out in return. So this has been great.
Absolutely, brother. All right, we'll be in touch. Take it easy.
All right. Sounds
Thanks.
good. You too.
Peace.
Bye.
Until next time, bros. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.